Why do you have a love for writing female protagonists?
You know, I really just have to attribute that to growing up with strong women in my life. It's my mother, my stepmother, my sisters, uh, cousins, and in friends. I've always been surrounded by strong women and women who I don't think I don't think that their stories have been told. And it's really interesting because I sometimes I sometimes struggle with this, in that should I be the one to tell these stories because I'm a man? But I think back to a conversation I had with a friend, and she really wowed me when she said this. And what she said was, she was just like, "You like women," and I'm just like, "Well, yeah, I'm a straight guy. I like women." She was just like, "No, I don't mean like in a romantic sense or in a sexual sense. I mean you like women. You pay attention. You're like empathetic. Like you really truly care about women." And when she said that, like I said, like it really stuck with me. And I thought back to like the books that I've written, the scripts that I've written, and how I've treated my female characters, and I've tried my best to, yeah, tell the stories of these women, and try to uplift these characters so that should anything ever be made, whoever sees this, perhaps they'll see themselves in that character, and they'll feel, they'll get that message. They'll feel empowered, and they'll feel uplifted. So it's really just due to the women in my life. I mean, I've just had amazing women in my life, and they inspire me. They truly do inspire me.
Well, let's see you had brought some of your books with you here?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm just, because I read a little bit about them on Amazon, and each one had an interesting story. I was just wondering if you could hold it up and just quickly tell us.
Sure. So this is Guestlist.
Okay.
This is my first book, and it tells the story of a young woman, named Juliet, who moves from Miami to New York. When she gets to New York, she gets caught up in the whole nightlife scene, meets a popular party promoter, and sparks fly.
Okay.
Yeah, the reception to this book was really good. I was worried, because of what we were talking about. I was worried about how people would respond to the depiction of Juliet. I wondered if this was the story that I should tell, because I was telling it from a young woman's point of view. But apparently, people responded. The voice was authentic, and so I'm really happy with it. I'm really happy with it.
That's a really cool cover too. I like that.
Thank you, thank you. It was actually designed by a very talented friend of mine, Sheena Michelle Reese, Civilized Media. She designed. This is actually the second cover for Guestlist. The initial cover was in a nightclub and had the disco ball and everything, but I wanted Juliet to be on the cover, and so.
What were you afraid of with that character, that the audience may either think you weren't the right person to write it or whatever it was?
Well, again, just I'm a man writing, about a young woman, and writing, through her point of view. And, it's a romance, and the book goes certain places, especially like sexually. And I was worried that it would come off as inauthentic. I was worried that maybe I know I've seen gripes of like male writers, writing their fantasy, writing, and oh gosh, there was a hilarious example I saw on Twitter where it was, I don't know, something like a woman's lips were as big as, I don't know, big as balloons, or, it's just something so odd that clearly the author thought was alluring, and that everyone else is just like, this is terrible, this is horrible. Men, stop writing women like this. And so that's what I was, one of the things I was afraid of. I was afraid that, people would think that, I'm just writing my fantasy, that I may be objectifying women in some way. And that clearly wasn't my intent. This is a story that I felt needed to be told.
Sure. And let's see some of the other ones you got there.
This is Manhattan Sweetheart.
Nice.
I forget the illustrator's name, but she's like a fashion illustrator, a Russian fashion illustrator. Right. And she gave me so many different options for the cover. But it's great. But Manhattan Sweetheart is about, it's actually about a young man who pursues a young woman. And, he's trying his best. She's essentially revealed to be a call girl. And he just comes to realize, he can't compete with the world that she's in and the things that she wants and what she's after. Again, this was another book that, I was worried about how people would respond, what people would think, but I wasn't trying to, in any way like objectify or disrespect, or anything like that. It was just a story that I wanted to tell. And it's also inspired by Breakfast at Tiffany's. I love Breakfast at Tiffany's, both the book and the film. And this is just kind of like my spin on Breakfast at Tiffany's. It was just something that I felt I needed to write at the time.
Do you almost hear the critics in your head and then you counteract them?
No.
No? Okay.
I don't think about criticism until after the work is done. And not even after the work is done, but after the work is done and it's out there. I didn't have any kind of like thoughts, in writing Manhattan Sweetheart or Guestlist until they were published and they were out in the world. And then it was just like, wait a minute. Should I have done that? Was that, the right story? Should I have included maybe like that plot point or whatever? But yeah, apparently I'm okay.
That's good, yeah. And you have one more there?
I do. I mentioned earlier I grew up in a neighborhood called Orangebound in Memphis, Tennessee. This is Orangebound, the novel.
Oh, wow, okay. Very cool.
Thank you. This was young Earl Grey did the cover. She's an Australian artist, and I just loved her style. And she was able to create this. It's supposed to kind of evoke blaxploitation. I don't know that it does, but it's also got a comic booky quality that I love. And the story is it's a thriller. It's it's got action elements and everything, but it's also very much like exaggerated, like a comic book would be. So I think that the cover really works for the story. And it tells a tale of, this is actually another male protagonist. It tells a tale of an aunt who's trying to leave the drug dealing game behind. And he gets wrapped up in a romantic entanglement with a hairstylist named Tuffy. But then he suspects that when Tuffy disappears, he suspects that Tuffy has stolen his money. Oh. And a lot of other elements come together. The real bad guys come into play, and I do have Gigi Garcia. She's like very prominent on the cover. She's like the main enforcer for the bad guys, and she's a strong female character, but she's also very lethal. I've had people who've read this book. I've had a lot of them comment on Gigi, like they love her because of her character. She's very much chaotic evil.
What advice do you have for writing female protagonists?
Once again, it's paying attention. I think that a large reason why I'm able to write female protagonists, I guess, as well as I do, is because I really have paid attention to the women in my life. I pay attention to the women around me. I pay attention to, the situations that they may find themselves in, and how they respond, or how they would have liked to have responded. It's really just all about paying attention and figuring out how to take what you've seen and give that to your characters.
Sure. And maybe, when you talked about so many male writers possibly are perceived as writing like this fantasy, but if you're writing where the women have like these fears and doubts and insecurities and things, I don't know where that plays into a fantasy. That sounds like a real person. So,
I mean, yeah. I'm not, yeah, that's the thing. I'm not coming at my female characters, from that fantasy standpoint, like I'm not, like I am creating a person, and telling that person's story. And you've got to really know that person inside and out, their hopes, their fears, how they would react in a certain situation, like who they are. You really have to know who your character is. And I think that if you're able to do that, you can avoid making those types of mistakes.
Sure, and the reverse could be said for women writing men, that if you're just writing this one-dimensional stud hero that's just, they never have any doubt. I mean, that doesn't seem real either.
Right. Exactly.
So, the same could be said. Because, there's a lot of course, criticism. Well, how can we write someone that we aren't really in that situation? Well, I mean, we've met people and we can pick up on things, and yeah, I don't feel like we should be barred from writing things that aren't in our gender or neighborhood or whatever. So,
right, exactly.
Yeah. What challenges do you face when writing female protagonists?
It would really be just like the small things. Just for example, gosh, I feel like I'm going to say something horrible here, but...
Oh, that's okay. We can take it out.
While I'm all about, paying attention and looking at the details, I mean, there are some things I just don't know. For example, Tuffy, who's a hairstylist. I grew up around women who were, in that world, who were hairstylists. My stepmother owned a beauty salon, but I am not a hairstylist. And so it's just like, small details about, say, like women's hair, I want to know, am I getting this right? Like, it sounds crazy, silly, but those are the challenges, just kind of like the minutia of women's life. I'm not a woman, so I wouldn't know that. So that's what's difficult. And that's when, those are the questions I would ask in writing. It's just like, okay, I have, this female character doing this, saying this, pondering this. Am I getting it right? Is this accurate? I will ask for feedback on that, and based on that, apply that, make whatever changes are necessary. Just to go back to your point, we're all people. We all have similar experiences and feelings, regardless of where we may have grown up or where we work or who we interact with. I don't think it's difficult to write female characters, difficult to write women, because women are human. It's really just kind of applying like that same humanity that I would to a male character. It's like, it's not difficult. There's a quote from Jack Nicholson in As Good as It Gets, where someone asks him, how do you write female?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And what does he say? He says, I take away accountability. I think of a man
or something, yeah. Right.
And I take away accountability. I don't know. I always think about that quote. It's just like so horrible. But
it works for his character.
It works for his character, definitely. But yeah, when it comes to crafting female characters, it's not like, it's thinking about them as a human, as a person. We all go through it. We all, have similar stuff going on. So the depth, that's not difficult. It's like I said, it's just like the kind of maybe superficial stuff.
Sure. And one thing that I love Margaret Atwood says about female characters is that she doesn't make them all sweetness and light, because all human beings have a range of emotions in them,
Right.
even the best ones.
Right.
So she gives them good qualities as well as the bad. So I think that's another thing that she said was she saw that sometimes women didn't have these depths to them that weren't dark enough, in terms
Right.
of certain thoughts that weren't always good. I think she said some woman stood up in the audience and said, "We're tired of being painted as good all the time," And I'm sure in this beauty shop, people confide in hairstylists, and there's all sorts of interesting stuff in there.
Oh, yeah.
To be continued. What do you hate seeing in female characters?
I hate seeing like the kind of one-dimensional damsel in distress, or just kind of like dainty. Women have range. Women have dark as well as light. As you mentioned in my book Orangebound, the character of Gigi Garcia. I don't think that I've ever seen a female character like this, like in film or literature. I take that back. There's a book called, I think, Heartsick, and the antagonist is essentially like a female Hannibal Lecter, Gretchen something, I can't remember, but reading a character like that, seeing a character like that in that book, you wouldn't expect. We've never seen anything like that, and I tried to do something like that with my character Gigi Garcia. I think that's probably why a lot of people responded to this character, because she is strong. She's physically strong. She takes on the guys, but she's super intelligent. I wanted to create a formidable villain, and I don't think that had really been seen. And so that's the thing. I as you mentioned, like, women have range, and I hate seeing female characters that don't take full advantage of that. That's my roundabout way of getting there, of saying that, is that I don't like when these female characters are certainly capable of showing and expressing so much more than the writer has allowed them to, and they get stuck in a role that honestly serves a plot instead of the other way around.